Hello and welcome back to the library. This story is a continuation of my last live, which was done on the inn at Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. So if you're interested in that, I'll link it at the end of this video. If not, just sit back and enjoy. Our story begins in the fall of 2018. Sarah and Peter had just gotten engaged and had planned a romantic weekend to celebrate the occasion. The couple had heard wonderful things about the quaint old town of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, and thought it the perfect setting for the lovers to plan out their upcoming wedding. Sarah had gone online and read several reviews about locations to stay, and settled on the inn at Jim Thorpe for its notoriety and proximity to activities in town. It was a cold and rainy October Friday when Sarah and Peter arrived at the inn. The two checked in and were given room 310. "Have a wonderful stay," said the clerk, as they made their way to the elevator. Neither Peter nor Sarah thought anything about the room assignment. Peter only wished for a room that had access to the famous balcony that overlooked the street. The couple uneventfully entered the room and began the usual routine of unpacking and getting settled in. Sarah wanted to freshen up, and Pete was starving and looking for dinner. As the couple readied themselves for the evening, Sarah mentioned that the room made her feel a bit uneasy, although she could not put her finger on a reason why. Peter dismissed her concerns as simple jitters or nerves based on the task that lay ahead of planning their wedding. "You'll feel a lot better after we have some dinner and get a few drinks in you," said Peter. Sarah agreed, and the couple went out to a local pub for dinner and dancing and didn't return until later that evening. In fact, they stayed out well past midnight and didn't return until 1 in the morning. The hotel was quiet and sparsely populated at that time, which was unusual considering it was a Friday autumn weekend. As they made their way back to the room, Peter suddenly began to feel ill. He expressed himself to Sarah that he felt flu symptoms coming on. Sarah took a good look at Peter and agreed that he did look flush. She felt his forehead and said he was definitely warm. She advised him, "Jump into bed, relax, and we'll try to take care of this." At this point, Peter jumped into bed, but it was too late. He was really bad, feeling pretty ill, and he expressed that to Sarah. Sarah tucked him in and assured him everything would be fine. She was just going to go downstairs, see if the hotel had a thermometer and perhaps some Tylenol, and she'd be right back. Peter laid there with his eyes closed, trying to get some sleep, but his head was spinning. Sarah couldn't have been gone more than 15 minutes when he heard a gentle knock at the door. Peter assumed it was Sarah. Maybe she forgot her key. Maybe she forgot some money. But he was way too sick to get out of that bed. His head was spinning and the room was going with it. So he just laid there helpless. Suddenly, he heard the latch of the door open, and the creaking as the door slowly began to open. "Ah, she must have found her key," thought Peter as he turned over in hopes of finding some relief from this horrible feeling. Peter rolled over and mumbled a few words. "Sarah? Were you able to find the thermometer? Could you get the Tylenol?" But Sarah didn't answer. Pete muscled up all his energy just to open his eyelids and take a look. It wasn't Sarah. What he saw was a young, quite beautiful woman in a nurse's uniform standing in front of the bed. The woman spoke softly to him and said, "Don't worry. I have a thermometer. We're going to take good care of you. I'm Abigail." At this point, Pete was so sick he didn't even question the concept. All he knew was that someone was there and willing to help him, and he was thankful for it. The nurse approached him, bent over the bed, and slowly touched his forehead. "Let's see what we have here," she said. And as she touched his forehead, an icy cold chill ran through his body, something that he had never encountered before. She then took out a thermometer, placed it under his tongue, and said, "Let's get a good reading." After what seemed like an eternity to Peter, she pulled out the thermometer, closely examined it, and said, "This is not a good temperature, my friend," and she walked into the bathroom. Within moments, she returned with soaking wet washcloths and put them on his forehead and neck. She then took his hand, held it gently, and said, "You're going to be just fine." And with that touch, again, that cold chill ran through his body. And with that, she said, "I'll be right back," as she quietly went back into the bathroom. As Peter laid there, he suddenly felt like his fever was breaking. He began to sweat. The dizziness began to fade. He was actually feeling much better. In fact, he felt well enough to doze off and get some sleep. The next thing Peter heard was the door opening to the room and Sarah entering. Peter had no idea how long he'd been asleep, but he did know Sarah's voice as she came in stating, "Honey, Pete, are you okay? I'm back. I couldn't find a thermometer, but I did get some Tylenol." Peter opened his eyes and slowly began to prop himself up. He felt better now. He had enough energy to at least do that. "How are you, honey?" she said again. And Peter answered, "I'm feeling much better, thanks to that nurse that was here." "Thanks for sending her. I didn't know the hotel had a nurse." A confused look came over Sarah's face as she said, "Honey, the hotel doesn't have a nurse. What are you talking about?" Pete responded, "Yes, it does. I'm telling you, a nurse was here. In fact, she might still be here. She went into the bathroom, just as I doze off. She took my temperature, put some wet rags on me, and then went into the bathroom, just as you came through the door, I think." Sarah again said, "Pete, I'm sure you were just dreaming. There's no nurse here." But Pete was emphatic. He said, No, go check. Miss, are you still here?" Sarah was pretty sure that this nurse was a figment of Pete's imagination, brought on by the delirium from the sickness. But she didn't want to upset him anymore and decided to humor him. "Okay, Pete, I'll go check," as she made her way towards the bathroom. As she expected, the bathroom was empty. No one was there. But suddenly she discovered something that wasn't right. Something was different about the bathroom. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught the glimpse of something glass. She made her way over to the sink, and there she found an old, dusty thermometer sitting on the sink. The thermometer was a very old-looking device, a mercury thermometer, something you don't see anymore. So she picked it up and examined it, brought it back into Pete, and showed it to him. And he said, There, that's it. That's what she put in my mouth." Sarah was baffled. Was there really a nurse here? In any case, Sarah took the thermometer, told Pete she had to go run downstairs again to get some more liquids, because that's always good for a cold or for a flu, and excused herself from the room. By the time she made her way back downstairs to the front desk, it was well after 2 p.m., and the night shift clerk was basically falling asleep with a magazine in his hand. Sarah approached the desk, took out the thermometer, placed it on, and said, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but your house nurse left this in our room. Thank you for sending her up." The desk clerk looked up, half asleep, but said, "Ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't send a nurse up. In fact, the hotel doesn't have a nurse." Sarah said, "That can't be. Here's the thermometer she left in our room." The clerk said, "Ma'am, I don't know where the thermometer came from, but the hotel hasn't had a nurse since the 1920s. He went on to say, "Sure, it's all here in the hotel history log," as he went under the desk and pulled it out, flipping the pages. Here it is. Here's the last nurse that the hotel had, 1925. Her name was Abigail Stone. At this point, Sarah was beyond confused, but she took the clerk's word for it, went back upstairs, and back to the room where poor Pete was still recovering from his illness. As Sarah entered the room, Pete jumped up. "Did you find her? Did you find who the nurse was?" Sarah just sat down on the bed next to Pete and said, "Look, honey, I couldn't find anything. In fact, the clerk said there hasn't been a nurse in the hotel since 1925. Pete said, "That can't be. This woman was here. She told me her name was Abigail." And upon hearing that, Sarah's face turned white and said, "Pete, the last nurse of the Jim Thorpe Inn was named Abigail Stone." Stay scared, my friends. Thanks for watching.